Good morning, friends and enemies. In today's video, we will be ranking every fantasy wide receiver as a sit, start, or a flex, going game by game, as we always do every Thursday. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you want the wide receiver rankings preview show. We also did the running backs yesterday, so you can go check out the channel if you want to see that. We'll link it down below. But every Wednesday, every Thursday, running back, wide receiver. Subscribe if you're new and you want them going forward. First matchup on the slate, tonight's Thursday Night Football, Las Vegas at Denver. Denver, 9.5-point favorites here, 42.5-point total. So Vegas is just telling us that Vegas is going to get their ass whooped. Courtland Sutton's been a little bit more up and down recently, but I do think it's been based off of the matchups that he's had. Defense is playing him differently, playing guys like Derek Stingley. It's obviously going to be shut down city for you, but I feel really good about having Courtland Sutton still in my lineup for this one. On the flip side, Patrick Surtain will be the only guy really defensively for the Broncos that miss this game, which is obviously, a big fall off for the secondary there, but they still have a ton of good pieces. Their pass rush is really, really good. Troy Franklin seems to eat when Sutton is kind of taken out of the game. So the matchup is good. Vegas has shown him a little bit of respect with that 44.5 line. I still think he's very much worthy of being in the shaky flex category, however. And I should mention Marvin Mims is going to miss Thursday Night Football with a concussion. He missed last game as well, which did open things up for Troy Franklin and the passing game. So maybe a little bit of a higher floor, ceiling, whatever you want to say in there. On the flip side, we have the Raiders, who just moved off of Jacoby Myers. Obviously, he's in Jacksonville now, which opens up the wide receiver room a bit. Trey Tucker's already been running basically every route. We know Brock Bowers is going to eat here. The matchup's really tough. Trey Tucker's been very boomer bust. He's got almost an identical line to Troy Franklin, so I do think he just belongs in the shaky flex category. I definitely think there are going to be a lot of lineups that have Trey Tucker, and I don't feel queasy about it. I do think he's someone that has shown us he can have boom games, and I am curious to see how the target share starts to dispense now with no more Jacoby Myers. It's going to be Brock Bowers getting probably 8, 9, 10 plus targets, and then, you have the receivers behind him, Trey Tucker. Tyler Lockett was the only other receiver that ran a route last game. Curious to see if this opens up some usage for Jack Besh, their day 2 pick. That was a rookie. Deontay Thornton has definitely been kind of like pushed out of the circle of trust here. So with the other guys, I mean, they're both definitely rather nots. They're not someone I want to see, but I'm more just intrigued by the situation. As you can see, their lines are 16.5 and 12.5 receiving yards. Let's not go down that route. Next up, we've got the Berlin game, Atlanta and Indy, 9:30 a.m. on a damn Sunday morning, double cheeked up. Let's check the practice reports. The Falcons offensive line, not great, starting off with Chris Lindstrom, DNP, Matthew Bergeron, DNP. We are already obviously without a couple of our starting linemen because we lost them earlier on in the year. So I'm very worried about the Atlanta Falcons. We are 6.5-point underdogs. This is a 48.5-point total. Yeah, just terrified about the situation for our offensive line. DeForest Buckner was a DNP, however. Kenny Moore started the week off with a DNP. Sauce Gardner, I'm assuming he's going to play. He obviously just got traded there, which becomes a tough matchup for Drake London and the Falcons receivers. Right now, we're coming off of a big game for London, 3 touchdowns last week on Christian Gonzalez's head top. Wasn't enough to get us the dub, unfortunately, and I realize I am not even in the picture right now. Hello, friends. We're back. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you. How you doing? I will say, man, when this Indy defense gets healthy, when Sauce is up to speed, Kenny Moore is playing, and Travarius Ward gets back from his IR stint with his second concussion, that is going to be, the entire team, all the personnel right now. If Daniel Jones can be what he's been, if he could be a top 15 quarterback rest away, this is a legit championship contending team, man. That secondary is going to be scary. But for right now, it's Drake London coming off his hottest game. We're just going to throw him into the must-start category. Line is at 71.5. Michael Pittman feels really good. I will say the Falcons secondary has obviously been very good. You're seeing a lot of orange. You're seeing a lot of red. I went to look into this game because I'm like going back and forth on Alec Pierce. He's been really, really underratedly good this entire season. 65 or more receiving yards in 5 of their last 6 games. He's catching deep passes. He's also become this big-time possession receiver. The Falcons, however, have allowed the fewest plays of 20-plus passing yards. So I do think that hurts a guy like Alec Pierce. Our safeties play back. We do play zone coverage very, very heavily, which obviously disallows those types of deep shots. We have very good safety play going on between Jesse Bates and Xavier Watts right now. So Alec Pierce, to me, he's going to be a shaky flex, even though his Vegas line is at 55.5. There's also, international games, they get sloppy, man. I think the time difference is 5 hours. The traveling, you're out of the country, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I just tend to give a little bit of a tick down to most of the secondary players in these types of games. So Alec Pierce, he's going to be in a lot of lineups, and I don't blame a lot of people, but I will say I have a little bit of hesitation there. Josh Downs is going to go into shaky flex, as is Darnell Mooney here. And one last final reminder, I will be in Berlin, Germany for this game. We'll be there. I actually have a flight in about 6 hours or so. By the time you guys are watching this, it'll be in a couple hours. We head out there. We get in Friday morning. We're doing a fan meetup Saturday afternoon, 5 p.m. We've got the location locked down. So again, if you are someone that's going to be in the Berlin area on Saturday throughout the weekend, DM me on Instagram or Twitter or DM the brand account or whatever, and we'll send you details for the meetup. Getting into the normal games, we've got Baltimore, we've got Minnesota. 49.5 point total here. Minnesota 4.5 point underdogs. Yes, JJ McCarthy is the quarterback, and they're going very low volume. We don't know Aaron Jones' status. He was a DNP on Wednesday, but we'll see. Reportedly, decent chance he could tough it out and play through the shoulder injury right now. But if he plays, I do expect them to go up with a pretty heavy run approach, as the Baltimore defense can definitely be attacked through the ground game, though they can be attacked through the air as well. And they are a lot healthier right now, so it's not as easy. But Jay Jeff's going to go into the must-start category. Jordan Addison, I know he's been a little bit shakier in times with JJ McCarthy, but I do think in a game script with 49.5 points projected to be scored, Lamar is going to be clicking on all cylinders. I'm going to throw Jordan Addison in my lineup. I do think he's going to be a dub flex. He does have a lower Vegas line than Alec Pierce here, but I do think I trust Jordan Addison a little bit more. Maybe that's going to be a bad take in hindsight, but Jordan Addison's going to be a dub flex for me despite McCarthy being in there. Zay Flowers is going to be a feels good for me, and then I don't really want to start anybody else. I'll throw Rashad Bateman in the rather not tier, though. Moving to Buffalo at Miami. This is a 50.5 point total. Miami 9.5 point underdogs. Buffalo has gotten back their first round cornerback, Maxwell Harrison, who has been playing well. When we look at the injury report, Joey Bosa, DNP, James Cook, DNP, AJ Epinesa, DNP, Teron Johnson, DNP, Daquan Jones, DNP, Shaq Thompson, DNP. So we need a little bit more clarity on the defensive side of the ball for Buffalo. They could be down a lot of players. Not really going to affect anything in this game because Jalen Waddle, listen, I think with Tyreek Hill out, despite how bad this offense can look at times, I still think his target share is way too high for you to ever think about sitting him. Khalil Shakir, I know the matchup is great on paper, and it's actually insane that Miami has allowed the single fewest fantasy points to wide receivers up to this point because teams obviously run all over them. But it is something to note, and I do think this could be, I mean, we're seeing Dalton Kincaid kind of flourish into the #1 weapon for Josh Allen right now. If James Cook is out, maybe they lean a little bit less on the run game and it goes a little bit more into Shakir's favor. So Shakir, I think, is going to go into the shaky flex category, definitely towards the top of it. Keon Coleman, he is running all the routes. I think he's due for a decent fantasy day. So I'm not like overly optimistic about getting him into my lineup, but I definitely think he deserves to be in the shaky flex conversation just due to the fact that his playing time isn't getting scaled down. Josh Palmer, no. Like nobody else in Buffalo besides Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir are doing anything. Keon Coleman's going to get into the shaky flex. A lot of guys I'd rather start over him. Same thing with basically every Miami receiver. Yeah, we're just not starting those guys. Cleveland at the New York Jets. All right, the Jets are 2.5 point underdogs, 37.5 point total in this game. The Jets obviously got rid of Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner, which makes life easier for Cleveland's offense. However, nothing seems to be easy for that offense, regardless of who they're playing against right now. Garrett Wilson, his line is at 54.5. It's obviously a tough matchup against Cleveland, Denzel Ward, etc. We don't know who the quarterback is. I would assume it's Justin Fields coming off of their first win. And they are a little bit banged up on the defensive side of the ball. Carson Schwessinger, their stud rookie linebacker, started the week off with a DNP. So we'll see the practice reports on Garrett Wilson, but I think the plan for him was always to return after week 9 bye, which puts him, to me, I mean, listen, if you have Garrett Wilson, like he's going into the must-start category. I see that Vegas is a little bit lower on him, 54.5 as his receiving yardage line, which is more aligned with the feels good. But if I have Garrett Wilson and he's back, I'm throwing him into my lineup undoubtedly. Jerry Jeudy has still been the de facto #1 there, but he's been terrible. Obviously, anyone who owns him knows that. But without Sauce Gardner and this defense being terrible, I'm going to throw him at the bottom of the shaky flex category. Cedric Tillman will be returning, but for right now, he's a rather not just because this offense just has shown nothing. I don't know if Adonai Mitchell's going to play. Regardless, he's not in your lineups this week. Should know Isaiah Bond did start the week off with a DNP, so it's possible he's out. Jacksonville at Houston here. This is a 37.5 point total. Houston is a 1.5 point underdog. They have Davis Mills starting for them at quarterback. CJ Stroud has been ruled out with his concussion. Nico He's going to be the alpha, of course. He performed well against Jacksonville last time they played. Obviously, it's a huge downgrade with Davis Mills. He's not a must-start for me. I know Davis Mills and him showed like good chemistry last week, but I think each game you have to look at the circumstances objectively and say like, yes, Davis Mills is the quarterback. That's a huge downgrade for everybody involved. Same thing that like when Jake Browning had that one really good half with Jamar Chase, and then we get to the next week and it's like, okay, Jake Browning is the quarterback. You have to pull those guys down. Nico's going to be in the feels good category for me, but really honestly between feels good and the dub flex. So in my rankings, you'll see that reflected, which are live on BDGE.co right now and are always updated in real time for injury updates and all that kind of stuff. Again, if you're a Big Dog member, BDGE.co will get that for you. Behind Nico, I mean, there's no chance I'm playing another Houston pass catcher. Can Christian Kirk have a good game? Sure, but I'm not attaching myself to Davis Mills willingly. On the Jacksonville side of things, this is where it gets a little bit murkier, I think. Like, we don't have the status of Brian Thomas Jr. He started the week off with a DNP, so it does look like it's trending in the direction of not having him for a game at Houston. Obviously, the toughest matchup for opponents' wide receivers. We have Dyami Brown, who did get a limited practice in, I believe. If we check the practice reports, we had, where are you? Yep. Dyami Brown got back to a limited practice, had a concussion, so 50-50 for him to return there. A lot of DNPs for the Texans, however. Will Anderson, Danico Autry, Nick Chubb, Christian Harris, Jalen Petrie. Okay, so we are going to have to keep a very, very close eye on the defensive reports for Houston. Regardless, we don't know Brian Thomas Jr. status. We don't know if Jacoby Myers is going to suit up in his first game. I'd assume he plays a limited role. He's going to be in the shaky flex category for me if he does suit up. We have Travis Hunter obviously out right now. Don't want to play Dyami Brown. Parker Washington's kind of interesting. Like, you definitely can't put him into the dub flex category, but I do think he's playable. Like, I think he'll play the slot. I think him and Trevor Lawrence have had good chemistry, even if Jacoby Myers plays. Like, this is an acquisition of Jacoby Myers that I think hurts Parker Washington over the remainder of the season, but not necessarily like in this first week, especially if Brian Thomas Jr. is not playing here. So I think you can have a worse start than Parker Washington. I would play him over Jacoby Myers, but the matchup is really, really tough. Obviously, Vegas does not expect Trevor Lawrence and this Jacksonville offense to have success against Parker Washington. If Brian Thomas Jr. does play, I am not optimistic about it. I honestly think he probably deserves to be in the shaky flex, like near the top of it, obviously, just because of the player that he is and he could pop off on any given moment. But for Brian Thomas Jr., yeah, matchup, ankle, quarterback, all that kind of stuff is just not going to be great. New England at Tampa Bay. We've got the Bucs as 2.5-point favorites, 48.5-point total in Tampa Bay. Emeka Egbuka off the bye should be great. We have no Kayshon Boutte for this game, which means Stephon Diggs should see a ton of targets in this one. He's going to go into the feels good category. I think Tez Johnson, I'm not going to put him into the dub flex category because I think the Patriots pass defense is good and it's not easy to get more than one guy home here. So he's going to go into the shaky flex category. I think Demario Douglas definitely deserves to be into the shaky flex category. With Kayshon Boutte out, Vrabel said that he does expect Kyle Williams to see a pretty big uptick in snaps. Douglas last week actually only played about 35 to 40% of the snaps, despite seeing that huge spike in production. But I do imagine him getting more and more involved in this offense with Boutte out. So I'm going to put Douglas here, and Vegas has him pretty fucking high at 46.5 receiving yards. I think that's going to be my play of the week, is taking the under on that. You guys know I typically give out one play of the week in the midst of these episodes. As I just see something, I kind of call it as I see it. Last week, it was Troy Franklin under 44.5 receiving yards. We hit on that one. But if you want to see all the plays that I take throughout the week, you can download the Pickett app, which will be the first link in the description down below. Absolutely free to download, free to follow me on there. It is like a social sports betting tracking app where you can follow your friends on it. You could sync all the books that you use, whether it's MGM or any of the other ones. So it has like all your bets in one place. And then, of course, you could follow me when you use code BDGE on there. So use code BDGE. When you download the Pickett app, it'll automatically follow us. And then you could sync any sports book. And then we can, parlay our parlays together. There's like a copy bet button on there. So if you see my bets on there, you could just hit copy and it'll automatically put it into the sports book of your choice. So download the Pickett app, use code BDGE when you do it. That lets them know that we sent you. So outside of those guys, yeah, I mean, like Kyle Williams, even if he gets more snaps, he's going to be in the rather not category. Chris Godwin Jr. is, I think they've all but ruled him and Bucky Irving already out for this one. So we'll just kind of move along here. New Orleans at Carolina. We've got the Saints as 5.5-point underdogs, 39.5-point total in this game. We just had Rashid Shaheed get moved to the Seattle Seahawks. When we look at the injury report here, it is Rico Dowdle starting with the DNP. I think he's going to be fine. Fuaga is going to be doubtful for this game. They also just lost Cesar Ruiz. They traded away Trevor Penning, so they will be without many of their offensive linemen, the New Orleans Saints, which is not great when you have Tyler Shuck at quarterback. However, I do think volume concerns kind of just outweigh all of that kind of stuff for Chris Olave. They haven't had a lot of pass volume. They haven't had a lot of play volume on offense, which I think comes back to the norm in this one. And I'm not concerned about Chris Olave, honestly. He's going to be feels good here. Ted McMillan's also going to go into the feels good category. I mean, Bryce Young and the Panthers don't pass the ball a lot when he's under center, but it's a really good matchup against New Orleans. And Ted McMillan, at the end of the day, is just a dude that gets like 25% of the targets every single day. He's just such the clear alpha there that it doesn't really matter. And then I don't want to play any of these other Panthers wide receivers. I don't want to play any of the other Saints wide receivers. Like Brandon Cooks might be all right. Devon Vele, they traded picks for him, should get a little bit more run here with Rashid Shaheed out. But at the end of the day, I just think it's going to be Chris Olave and Juwan Johnson just getting all the targets. Giants at Chicago. We've got the Chicago Bears as 4.5-point favorites, 46.5-point total in Chicago here. Honestly, I feel good about most of the players in this game from a pass catching standpoint. Paulson Adebo started the week out again with a DNP, so it does look like he is trending towards not playing in this one. We did have a lot of DNPs in this game for the Bears. Roma Dunze, DJ Moore. I'm not overly concerned about those, though. Luther Burden got back to a full practice. DeAndre Swift was limited. Kyle Monangai limited. Cole Kmet also got back to a limited practice, which, if he does end up playing, would, mess things up a little bit for a Colston Loveland. But for right now, I think Wan'Dale Robinson's a dub flex. This is a great matchup against Chicago. I even think Darius Slayton is a dub flex. Actually, one thing I do want to point out to you guys, this is the weather report done by Kevin Roth. This is free. RotoGrind. Just type in RotoGrinders weather report NFL, and you'll be able to find this page. The one concerning weather game is the Giants at Chicago. A bit of rain, snow mix is possible. Currently thinking more snow than rain pregame, then more showery with a few flakes in-game. While the precipitation forecast will be tough to pin down until closer to kickoff, we already know that winds are noteworthy here. I expect sustained winds 15 to 20 miles per hour with wind gusts around 30 miles per hour. No one factor here is a complete game changer, but the wind, precipitation, and cold is not ideal for offensive production. So with that in mind, yes, I will actually move Darius Slayton down to the shaky flex. I love the matchup for him. I thought he was going to have a great game prior to these weather reports, but this is probably not a great weather slate for that type of mix-up. I'm sure they'll take a shot or two downfield, and this is a pretty soft secondary for Chicago, so you can do worse than Darius Slayton. I still think he is like flex worthy, but obviously a lot shakier with the weather report. There are a lot of people that are really down on Roma Dunze right now based on what happened last week. I honestly think that was more of just like the running game was wide open against Cincinnati. I think DJ Turner's like one of the only good Bengals defenders right now, their cornerback, and that was their game plan to just take Rome out, and it ended up resulting in DJ Moore having a huge game, Colston Loveland having a huge game, and Kyle Monangai having a huge game. I still feel good about Rome, so take that for what it's worth. I think DJ Moore, I think more often than not, he's not a good play, and I think we're going to have a lot more recency bias towards last week's game when he had a big game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Terrible defense. It is another good matchup against the Giants, but I don't love the weather. So for me, Moore, he's a shaky flex towards the top of it, but I'm not like overly in love with him. And I don't want to start anybody else in Chicago. Moving to the 4 o'clock slates, we got Arizona at Seattle. Seattle, 6.5-point favorites at home here, 45.5-point total. JSN, of course, his line is the highest of the week, 99.5 receiving yards. Insane. On the flip side, we have a great news update that Jacoby Brissett will be the starter for at least the foreseeable future, which is a massive upgrade to Marvin Harrison Jr., a massive upgrade to Trey McBride. Now, Seattle's secondary is getting healthier, so they're a little bit more difficult to pass against. I still feel pretty good about Marvin Harrison Jr., though, with Jacoby Brissett there. So he's kind of teetering between feels good and dub flex, but I do think for the most part, anytime Jacoby Brissett is going to be under center, you should be starting Harrison and you should be starting Trey McBride for sure. Behind JSN, I mean, it's a pretty good matchup. The Arizona Cardinals defense is getting healthier, and I think they're actually going to be pretty good down the stretch. Cooper Kupp is likely going to miss this game again. But because they just traded for Rashid Shaheed, it makes that second wide receiver spot a little bit tough to figure out. Like Shaheed obviously played with Clint Kubiak and knows his system from New Orleans, and now Clint Kubiak's in Seattle. That being said, though, it might not be that easy to just pick it up right away and run 90% of the snaps. I'm sure they've changed things. I'm sure the verbiage, you can't just leave the same verbiage as you did with another NFL team because they'll know exactly what you're doing. So it might take them a second to pick things up. So in regards to both of these guys, Rashid Shaheed and Torrey Horton, we need to probably get more reports out of Seattle from the beats. I think they're both shaky flexes. I would play Shaheed over Torrey Horton, and I honestly don't feel that bad about playing Shaheed because I'm sure he'll be able to pick up Clint Kubiak's offense relatively quickly. So he's more towards like the middle or upper. If I had to choose kind of one side of the spectrum, I'm leaning towards with Rashid Shaheed. But I do think it makes it pretty messy behind JSN. Detroit at Washington here. Detroit is 7.5-point favorites. Honestly, I love that line. Taking just 7.5 points. Kind of crazy against Washington with Mariota starting, with no Terry McLaurin. I know the Detroit offensive line is really banged up right now. Let's take a look at the practice reports here. Taylor Decker with a DNP, Penei Sewell with the DNP, Dan Skipper with the DNP. Yeah, so that if I had to guess, that's why the line is so weirdly close. Detroit, I think I just read this on Twitter. They're 12-0 following a loss over their last 12 games. So I do expect Detroit to come out humming. The offensive line could be the reason why the line is even remotely close like this, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, of course, is in there. Jameson Williams, I'm a little bit torn. Obviously, he's been really, really up and down. He did just have a good game coming off of their bye, so maybe that's more of a part of what they're doing going forward, but I do think you still have to factor in all of the weapons they have in their offense, what they've been up to this point. You can't just look at the one big play he had last week and say, you know, he's back. 44.5-yard total here is right around where the shaky flex options are. The defense for Washington has been terrible the last month or so. Lattimore is out now for the remainder of the year with a torn ACL. Not that he's really good at this point of his career anyways. So JMO, he's right in between that dub flex, shaky flex tier. I'm going to put him in the shaky flex tier because, listen, if you own JMO, do you really feel that good? I know the matchup's great, but like you don't feel that great about starting him. On the flip side, with Marcus Mariota going against Detroit, the only player even thinking about starting is Deebo Samuel, though he has been terrible over the last month of the season too, despite having a really good rollout with Terry McLaurin being injured. Luke McCaffrey is now out for the year as well. I think if I have Deebo, I'm much more likely to start him than I am not. It's a 50-point total basically in this game, so I do think Mariota will have to throw a decent number of attempts, though I think Cliff Kingsbury's offense is kind of just getting exposed like it was year 2 with Arizona there. He's another one that's like teetering right on the line here between shaky flex and dub flex, so we'll just throw him at the end there. The LA Rams at the San Francisco 49ers. The Rams are 4.5-point favorites, 49.5-point total here. It's a very, very high line. Puka's obviously in the must start. I think I'm just going to throw Adams in the must start. He just scores every single week. It is trending towards Purdy not playing again. He was limited on Wednesday. We need to see some full practices. Ricky P is almost certainly not going to play in this game here. So assuming it's Mac Jones under center, I think Juwan Jennings goes into the shaky flex category. Probably closer to the top of it, but this is a very tough Rams defense. Probably one of, if not the best defenses in the NFL at this point. Kendrick Bourne goes into the very shaky flex category, and I don't think there's anyone else you want to touch in this game. Pittsburgh at the Los Angeles Chargers here. Sunday Night Football. We know the story of the offensive line for the Chargers right now. Going to be without Joe Alt, already without Rashawn Slater, of course, for the remainder of the season. Bobby Hart started with a DNP there, so might be without even more reinforcements in this one. Ladd McConkey has developed into their number one here, so he's going to be in the feels good category, if not closer to the must start category. Him and Gatson are the top 2 targets there. Quentin Johnson did come back with a nice bounce back, and this is a pretty good matchup against the Steelers, who, as you can see, have allowed the single most fantasy points to the wide receiver position, thanks mainly in part to Jamar Chase and Joe Flacco there. But honestly, I think I would be fine starting either of these Chargers wide receivers as a dub flex. This is a 3-point favorite game for the Chargers, 45.5-point total. DK Metcalf, very tough matchup, and Vegas is rightfully looking at that for Metcalf. 3.5 receptions, 48.5-point total. I think if you have DK, you're probably playing him and feeling okay about him in your flex spot. And then Calvin Austin's going to go into the shaky flex spot here. DK has just been very up and down, but that's what he is, right? Like, you're going to start him some weeks and he's going to get you fucking 3 points. You're going to start him other weeks and he's going to get you 15. So, and then last game of the week, probably the hardest one to project from a fantasy wide receiver standpoint. You got Philly at the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay, 2.5-point favorites, a 45.5-point total here. We have no injury reports yet because this is the Monday night game. We expect close to full health for the Philadelphia Eagles. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. It's a tough matchup against the Green Bay defense. They're obviously a very good defense, but they've had games where they've been exposed a little bit. They've had games where, you know, they look like the best defense on the planet. But I do think if the Philadelphia offensive line, which should be healthy for this game, can stop the pass rush a little bit, that should give them enough time to be able to throw the ball a bit. So when I'm looking at this game, I think I would throw both A.J. Brown, whose line is at 56.5. I mean, the same line as Wan'Dale Robinson, into the dub flex tier. I'm going to throw Devontae Smith into the dub flex here too, because listen, at the end of the day, he's performed just as good as A.J. Brown has this year. So I'm going to throw both of them in there. Romeo Doubs, 52.5 receiving yards. He's obviously kind of developed into that #1 receiver for Jordan Love, and there's no more Tucker Kraft. My worry is they don't really have a lot of like big play threats on the outside or ones that are really converting at a high rate. So I'm worried that Doubs is going to see a lot of Quinyon Mitchell. And while the Philadelphia defense isn't what it was last year, I still think it's not a plus matchup. So Dobbs, I like him, but I'm definitely going to throw him into the shaky flex tier more so and throw him towards the top. Christian Watson, I'm going to throw him into the shaky flex tier. Definitely startable, but not someone I'm like overly optimistic about. Matthew Golden is in line, I believe, to play with the shoulder injury, but he hasn't done shit this year. So you don't want to play really anybody else. Again, reminder, I would stash Shaden Reed if he's sitting on your waiver wire. And that's going to conclude the wide receiver rankings video for this week. As I've already mentioned 17 times, you can get my actual rankings on bdge.co as a Big Dog member. It's the only place to get them. As you probably have already heard me say a million times, you can get access to the Big Dog membership for just $10 for the next 3 months. So the remainder of the season, if you go to our partner app, MGM, or their website, for first-time depositors, $10 or more using code BDGE, very important, using code BDGE when you deposit and play any slip on there. I already gave you a couple slips that I like. Detroit -7.5. I like DeMario Douglas under 46.5 receiving yards here. So if you want to parlay those together and throw that out there. But if you want to see all the picks that I take, obviously you can download the Pickett app as well. Use code BDGE. That one's free. MGM code BDGE will get you the promo code for our website, 3 months free for the Big Dog membership. All right. I love y'all. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I am off to the motherland. Look for me on TV Sunday morning. I haven't decided if I'm going to wear the Julio Jones red jersey. I got a Jamal Anderson all black Dirty Bird jersey too, which is kind of filthy. So one of the two. You'll see this fucking ugly face regardless. I'm out of here. Thank you. I love you. Smoke cheese.